I've undertaken numerous trials on a variety of New Zealand native plant species, both endangered and common, and the vast majority have performed extremely well in hanging gardens, and in many cases they performed better in the vertical situation than on the ground. This is very good news for improving the biodiversity in urban areas. New Zealand native plants are well adapted to surviving in peculiar situations: steep cliffs, rocky, windswept coastal sites, and dry, shaded areas, so it should be no surprise that given the right support, they will thrive in vertical gardens. The botanist Ronald Good identified 6 floral kingdoms, the largest natural areas he determined for flowering plants: boreal or holarctic, neotropical, paleotropical, Cape of South Africa, Australia, and the Antarctic. New Zealand plants are somewhat unique as they fall into both the Antarctic and Australian kingdom of plants. The geographic isolation of New Zealand has resulted in the development of a unique variety of plants which generally have a number of peculiar characteristics. The majority of plants are evergreen, the flowers are typically small and white, and the majority of plants disperse seeds by birds. Many species are dioecious, meaning the male and female flowers are on separate plants. Many plants have divaricating growth forms, multiple small angled branches. Many plants have evolved into larger forms compared with similar plant families in other countries. There are few nitrogen-fixing plants and few fire-adapted species. There are few annual herbs and few cold-tolerant trees. Very few plants have defences against mammalian browsers. The majority of plants in New Zealand belong to one of the following 4 families: ferns, podocarpus, liverworts, mosses and grasses. New Zealand hosts an unusual number of ferns for a temperate country. These exhibit a variety of forms, from stereotypical feather-shaped tufted ferns and tree ferns to less typical filmy, leafy and climbing ferns. New Zealand has 10 species of tree ferns, but there are numerous ground climbing and perching smaller ferns to be found throughout the country's forests, the largest of which is the king fern. Both the koru, in the shape of an unfurling fern frond, and the silver fern are widely accepted symbols of New Zealand. Podocarpus and Podocarpaceae were endemic to the ancient supercontinent of Gondwana, which broke up into Africa, South America, India, Australia, New Guinea, New Zealand, and New Caledonia between 105 and 45 million years ago. Podocarpus is a characteristic tree of the Antarctic flora, which originated in the cool, moist climate of southern Gondwana, and elements of the flora survive in the humid temperate regions of the former supercontinent. New Zealand has a greater density of liverworts than any other country due to its cool, wet and temperate climate. About half the species are endemic to New Zealand. There are 606 species known in New Zealand. While these include some liverworts with liver-shaped thalli, most are leafy liverworts which can be confused with mosses and filmy ferns. Undescribed species and those not previously recorded in New Zealand continue to be found in lowland forests. 90 species and varieties are listed on the 2001 Department of Conservation Threatened Plants list. There are 187 species of native grasses in New Zealand, 30 indigenous species and 157 endemic, meaning they are found nowhere else. New Zealand boasts 550 species of moss in more than 200 genera, a rich variety for such a small area. Only about 1/5 are endemic. In comparison, 4/5 of the country's flowering plants are endemic. Most New Zealand mosses originated in Gondwana, so there are strong relationships with species in Tasmania, southeastern Australia, and temperate parts of South America. A plant community is an assemblage of plant populations sharing a common environment and interacting with each other, with animal populations and with the physical environment. Plant communities can vary in size from a small ephemeral wetland to a forest. In short, a plant community is the floral component of an ecosystem. There are many kinds of plant community in New Zealand, from kauri forests to coastal dunes. The following slides show some different plant communities. Some ecosystems are predominantly made up of bare ground interspersed with plant species. This is often in environments that are constantly disturbed, such as scree slopes, shingle beaches, and braided rivers or habitats where the growth of plants is restricted, such as alpine and cliff environments. There are several types of dunes in New Zealand. The most common is the coastal dune, but there are also inland dunes that are made up of windblown sand from lake shores and riverbeds. There are also volcanic dunes made up of drifting pumice, scoria, and ash in the volcanic environments of the Rangipo Desert. The tussock grasses of New Zealand form expansive and distinctive landscapes, mainly in South Island, but also on the central plateau of the North Island and along parts of the axial range. The tussock grasses include grass species of Chinoa cloa, Festuca, and Poa, and some carex sedges. Shrub and shrublands are characterized by vegetation, dominated by shrubs, grasses, ferns, and low-lying trees. Scrub is habitat for many native plants and animals, including various lizard species, mistletoes, and orchids. Shrublands often form corridors between areas of vegetation, and some act as a nursery for regenerating forest. They can also be valuable in preventing slips and reducing erosion, absorbing carbon dioxide, or as a resource for honey production. Herb fields are plant communities dominated by herbaceous plant species. Salt pans are characterized by saline and alkaline soils and support a flora that is halophytic, meaning it naturally grows in areas affected by salinity in the root area or by salt spray. Wetlands are areas where water is the primary factor controlling the environment and associated plant and animal life. They occur where the water table is at or near the surface of the land, or where the land is permanently or temporarily covered by water. They come in many different guises, including streams, swamps, lakes, lagoons, estuaries, mudflats, and floodplains. Wetland ecosystems support a range of plant and animal species adapted to an aquatic or semi-aquatic environment. Prior to human arrival, New Zealand was largely a forested landmass, with forest occurring almost continuously below the timberline, from the Kermadec Islands in the far north to the Auckland Islands in the south. New Zealand has approximately 6.4 million hectares of indigenous forest, and these are located mainly in mountainous areas. Most of New Zealand's indigenous forests are found in the South Island. Vertical gardens are a relatively new concept, which has come about due to the need for green spaces in urban areas. 3 of each species were planted in the following situations for the trial. In choosing our plants, we have considered the soil conditions. We used the following soils in our vertical gardens. The plants used for this trial are as follows. Four plants in the vertical gardens died. A hebe died from too much wind and too little water. An Arthropodium and an Acelia got too much water and rotted, and the Euphorbia is not suited to the vertical gardens. The surprising result was that a number of plants in the garden suffered so badly over the long hot summer that I had to rescue them from the garden and move them to the vertical gardens. These are some of the plants that were rescued. In addition, some of the plants in the gardens simply did not make it. The trial conclusively demonstrates that New Zealand native plants are well suited to vertical gardens. They are undoubtedly sustainable over the long term, and provided they are given the basic requirements for growth, they will flourish. It is apparent that a good quality potting soil, moderate water, and adequate sunshine is sufficient to ensure good plant growth. The hanging gardens, with their moisture-retaining botanical felt pockets, have performed well for the plants. Despite the fact that the plants have been moved about for the trial and for shows on a regular basis, the maintenance has not been detrimental to the plant's health. The grants team of the University of Auckland undertook a small trial of hanging gardens to establish the suitability for use within the campus grounds. Despite their best efforts, the grounds team was unable to kill the plants. These are some of the benefits of vertical gardens.